Farmer Boy, Chapter 12. The Tin Peddler. The Wilder family gets a visit from the Tin Peddler. Here's some vocabulary that I think you need to know. Stout, which means strong and thick. Soldered, joined with solder. It's kind of like welding, okay? Nick Brown used solder to attach the handles to his pots and pans and to his cups. Bested means to outwit or get the better of. And if you look in this picture of the horse harness, it's stout, it's strong, and it's thick, okay? Down below, if you look right here, this is soldering, okay? This long piece of metal is called solder. Yeah, this person's using a blowtorch. They didn't use blowtorches back then, but what you would do is you would melt the solder down so it drips, and then it forms like a glue. So that's how Nick Brown was able to put the handles on his tinware. And bested means to get the better of. And here's the events. Nick Brown is the tin peddler, and a tin peddler is a person who travels around the country selling his goods made out of metal. He made pans, basins, cake pans, bread pans, dish pans, etc. So he made a whole bunch of things out of tin. He went around and sold. Nick Brown could tell more funny stories and sing more songs than any other man. This made Nick Brown very personable, and people really liked him. And the more a person likes somebody, the more ought they are to buy things. And Nick worked in the winter to make all of his goods made out of tin in order to travel the country in the spring and the summer to sell them. Back then, their winters were not like ours. We could go travel around the winter very easily because we have snow plows and they cleaned the roads and that for us. Back then, they didn't have snow plows. People would get around in sleighs, and it was hard to get around in the winter, especially when there was a lot of snow. So Nick would make all his tin goods in the winter and sell them in the spring and summer. Nick also brought with him the news of what's going on around the area. Now, Nick traveled from farm to farm, so he was able to talk to lots and lots of people, and he could bring news from farm to farm. And Almanzo's father found out a very important piece of news from Nick Brown, is that the horse buyers were willing to pay up to $200 for a 4-year-old horse that was in good shape. This is how people learned what was going on around them. There was no radio, TV, or newspapers back then. And what few newspapers they did print, a lot of people didn't buy. And Almanzo could not speak while the grown-ups were talking. He could only listen. That's another rule for kids, but way back in the 1800s. And in the 1800s, people traded for goods. They didn't use money, okay? For example, Mom traded in her wool and cloth rags to Nick Brown in exchange for his tinware. So Mother turned out to be a good, shrewd trader, and Almanzo watched Mom do this because he has to learn to do this when he gets older. So he watched Mom, and Mom threw that extra piece of tinware, the colander. She didn't really need it, but she threw it in the pile to trade or barter with Nick Brown. And when she knew Nick's final answer was, she was able to take the colander out and still get exactly what she wanted for her tinware for the year. So, and Nick Brown wasn't upset with Mom or anything. He just respected her all the more because she was a very shrewd trader. Okay, that's your summary for Chapter 12.